Welcome to the Star Wars Reporter podcast, the official podcast of StarWarsReporter.com. Welcome. I decided, because I'm not creative, to do the exact same shtick in the opening that I did last week.
But it fits the mood. Come on.
It fits mood, and I forgot to tie up my Wookiee beard here. But before we get started, just want to wish everyone happy 2022. Hopefully this year will be a lot better for everyone and the world.
But if not, at least we have Star Wars to watch on TV.
That's everything. That's the cure for all is Star Wars, and maybe a vaccination or two. I hope we don't get killed for saying that. But I just want to make sure everyone, before we get started, everyone watching now or tuning in, please make sure that you follow us on our social media, which is, of course, this channel. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and of course, subscribe, or these Ewoks will get you.
They'll eat you.
Eat you. Well, if you're a stormtrooper, they might just beat on you if you're not.
Yeah, I'm sure they only eat stormtroopers. They're dying to go to a restaurant. They just have many ways to eat a stormtrooper. Come on. They're wild savages. They eat everything.
Oh, what a good recipe book that would be. And also, too, if you want to collaborate, if you have a promotion that you want us to promote, have a news tip, or just want to say hi, or hola, or bonjour, or whatever, drop us an email at contact@StarWarsReporter.com. And of course, be sure to go to StarWarsReporter.com for all your news and awesomeness from everyone here. All right, guys. So, episode 2 of the Book of Boba Fett, which is called the Tribes of Tatooine, and once we get into it, we'll understand why it's called the Tribes of Tatooine. So guys,
I missed you. I must say, I missed you guys last night. We had a watch party for episode 1. I was all by myself last night. I missed you guys.
I actually really enjoyed the watch party. That was a lot of fun, actually watching it with other people and getting to see people's reactions and others as it's occurring. I think that's we should do that again sometime. That was fun.
I think the season finale would be awesome, right?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, season finale for sure. Yeah, I thought I would. I found it fun, the fact that I know that Adam and I were able to jump onto the group watch to test that out, and it didn't seem to work. So we all just did a 1, 2, 3, go. And then we were still like 10 seconds behind, 10 seconds ahead. So it was just, that part to me was comical, that we were kind of like, not kind of synced up. I felt like, my dad and a bunch of other dads getting together, trying to set up a video game system for the kids. That's what I felt like. And maybe Adam doesn't fall into that category like you and me, Todd. But
actually, no, Steve, I don't fall in that category. I'm a television producer. I do mobile. I build mobile trucks. So I'm pretty good when it comes to hooking things up. So
you're still an old dad, though.
I am an old dad. That's a fact. But I am pretty handy when it comes tech savvy, getting the best optimum video or sound stuff. So
right. I'm not going to point out the obvious education behind Adam's head right now. So let's just move on.
Yeah, don't do that. Move on. Like, what do I have behind my head? Oh yeah, nothing.
I have toys. I have toys that the kids play with. That's behind me.
Are you crazy? I don't let kids play with these toys. What's wrong with you?
Oh, sorry.
They're to be looked at.
Action figures, collectibles. All right, guys. So, chapter 2. Where should we start?
Well, I guess maybe the beginning.
All right.
So it starts. How did it start off again? Start off with them basically. How did it start off again? Oh yeah.
Fennec was leading that bounty hunter back to Jabba's palace
to interrogate him.
Yes.
Yeah, and we got another great opening shot of the gates of Jabba's palace.
I know. How good that feel when you see the gates open up, right?
Every time. They can do that shot every single episode, and I would love it every single time I saw it.
It was refreshing when it opens up. There's different legs underneath it, right? It's not C-3PO and R2-D2. It's not Luke Skywalker. Like we're only trained to see that, right? That's all we've ever seen. Now,
right.
It's something totally different. So seeing that was just kind of neat. Just even the details, how it goes in the ground, right? Those little pegs that go in the ground. The detail that they have in that, I just love the fact that it looks exactly like the exact same door they used back in 1986. It's just, yeah, it looked awesome.
Yeah, Agreed.
And of course, the interrogation was quite easy, sort of thing. I love the fact that it sets up right away. Okay. Oh, we were talking about the whole thing we talked about before. Like we had that in the trailer. We had them looking down through the Rancor pit cage, right? And of course, you're not going to talk. Well, let's feed him to the Rancor, right? It was so good.
So now we know. We know where that all comes from, right? When he doesn't want to talk, and they send him down into that pit. And that's what I was thinking. It's like it's empty, right? They don't have anything there.
It has to be empty.
And it is empty, unfortunately.
That was so cool.
Luke Skywalker is the reason for that.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they got a replacement Rancor, but I was like, where did he get that from?
It'd be cool to see them get their own Rancor, though. I will say, as much as it was hilarious watching them drop the assassin into an empty Rancor pit, I would love to see them get their own Rancor.
Well, maybe the baby one from the Bad Batch. Where's that one hanging out, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they could get those little the little dogs with the sand people. They could get those. They could get I don't know, maybe the.
Oh, you got to get the big, huge alien monster though. Like the sand dogs are cool and everything, but
they're so small. They're still intimidating. Don't get it wrong. If that came at me, I'd be a little concerned.
Yeah.
They're a little more vicious than a pit bull, and pit bull can be really vicious. But
I really like that once they brought him in, he almost immediately allegedly insult Boba Fett in Hutt or Huttese or whatever the language is.
Oh, yeah.
Like a slight to him being on the throne of a Hutt.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what he said. Do you remember what he said? It's very familiar dialogue.
I didn't piece it together, but at the time I didn't realize it was almost foreshadowing as to where it was going to go. I was like, oh, it's just a slight because he's sitting on the throne of Jabba the Hutt.
Right.
Yeah. But again, then he rats out the mayor, right? Which is kind of cool. Like, okay, it's the mayor, which we all thought was the mayor. Then they go and we get to see what's his name from Superstore again.
We determined it's not Jeff from Superstore. It's a different actor.
Yeah.
Is it really?
It is.
Stevie sent me that link. It's not Jeff.
It's not Jeff. I was so upset.
We got to get a side-by-side picture of that.
Just even the way that
his mannerisms are so very similar too.
With the hands, it's all about the hands. Like
yes, I know. Are you sure?
Yeah, I know. I looked up, and he does this thing where he goes, how he talks, and he goes, really, like he does that tilt of his head, how he talks, like really, from the show, and he does the same thing, and it's not the same last name. They're not like related. Nothing.
IMDb must be wrong.
And then we get a little hint about the Order of the Night Wind too. That one intrigued me. An order of assassin.
That's what he was, and Fennec's like, oh yeah, they're nothing.
Yeah.
So
well, it's funny to get that perspective from Fennec too, because all three of them are master assassins and bounty hunters to some extent, right? And to hear that kind of critique from Fennec was really funny. Like, oh, it's just the brand. You're paying for the name. They're not actually that
good. Well, obviously they're not. They had a whole team of them. They couldn't take them down, right? So,
do you know what it reminded me when Fennec was bringing this guy in? He's all chained and bringing him through the door too. It kind of reminded me that was probably the scene with Princess Leia coming in, pretending to be the bounty hunter, bringing in Chewbacca. Because he was like,
oh, totally.
He was chained up, and it was that whole same feeling. Even when they went to go see the mayor and they were dragging him through the street, for kind of the show, like look, like don't mess with us. We got one of these guys. And my side note, I wrote down, I'm so glad that Boba Fett was wearing his helmet for that scene.
Yes,
because he's more intimidating with the helmet than without the helmet. No offense to Tamura, but I just thought it's something that he should be doing. He should be wearing that. So,
especially on public, I agree 100%. Like that's one thing I love what they're doing with the Mandalorian. Like a lot of superhero movies and stuff like that, they always take the helmet off so you can see the face, so they can act, right? But the Mandalorian's been so strong and so effective; it has kept the mask on. To me, I want to see Boba Fett's mask on all the time, as much as we possibly can.
Yeah,
but he's a little more lackadaisical on his mask because of his time in the Sarlacc pit and stuff like that, but
Yeah. I think that's been one of the major criticisms too, is that he takes off the helmet too much.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the aura of Boba Fett is definitely 100% tied to that suit. And him having his helmet on through the streets, I think, is extremely important. Like, I get, when he's, working these deals and relationships behind the scenes and the bars, he's got to take the helmet off. But, to have a presence, an intimidating presence
Right.
in the city, being the daimyo, he's got to have helmet on. Like,
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I noticed too that during the scene of the Sarlacc pit, it dawned on me when the assassin got really afraid when the doors started coming up. So in 5 years, no one knows that the Rancor is dead.
What do you mean the Rancor pit? You said Sarlacc pit.
Or sorry, the Rancor pit. I said
Rancor
Sarlacc.
pit, yeah.
And the Rancor pit, no one realizes that the Rancor is dead. So they kept that. So maybe Bib Fortuna kept that a secret because that's a big intimidation. It's legendary, right? I don't want to mess with him because I'll go down into the Rancor pit and this thing will eat me. It'll be terrible. So that's pretty interesting to know that no one knows this. This is a secret kept.
Well, again, maybe it's possible. Like maybe he didn't know there was a Rancor there, but they said Rancor. The guy maybe just knows what a Rancor is. And know that that's not good.
Right.
That's possible too, right? Not the assassin might not know that there's.
I just thought if he would have said what Rancor, I thought he was dead. But I guess he wouldn't want to monologue with him because he was probably scared to death. But
I think you're right though, Steve. Like I think that's something that would want to keep under wraps anyway. The fact that that big huge pit, because that's one thing that I'm sure Jabba uses intimidation. Like everybody went back in Jabba's palace. They all knew when they went down that there was going to be a Rancor there. They're all excited, right? So
yeah,
I think you're on this thing for sure. But I was really excited to see find out who the mayor was. Right? They didn't say anything about the mayor, what he was. Could have been anybody, right? So to me, I mentioned before in our Mandalorian talks and stuff like that I've always been wanting to see a live action Hammerhead, that race, that species in action, and we finally get it. And I was pretty stoked to see it, just to see it move in the real world. You see it in the animated version, you saw it in Mos Eisley and A New Hope, but it didn't really do anything except for move. But now you actually see it move, hands, the little mouth talking on the side, and you have the little translator there. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was unbelievably cool. Like, amazing to see that.
And the simple fact that what I love about this planet, like really, you don't know, no one's getting the real story. It seems like, right? Like the assassin said, "There's the mayor." The mayor's like going, "Oh, it's not me," right? Like they're always picking somebody else, right? Sort of thing. Like So like we don't. Well, I guess we know who it was that hired him eventually.
Right, and see, this is the thing, right? In this scene here, it really shows how much that Boba Fett is maybe out of his element right now because he's walking in from this muscle or this bounty hunter, and even the mayor's kind of insulting him, like, "Oh, thanks for bringing him, bounty hunter. Here's your bounty or something."
Yeah, your reward. Yeah,
I am not a bounty hunter, and stuff like that. He's entering into the underworld with more of an intrigue behind it, where everyone's very like, oh, very proper, very nice. Even the bar owner, I forget Karsa, I forget her name, but when she first sees him or is told that he's in there, you can see the shock in her face because he should be dead. When I saw that, I thought, ooh, because there was the thing. Okay, so was it her that actually hired the assassin, and then the mayor's like, well, I didn't. And the mayor could be lying, but maybe it isn't the mayor. I think it's just the other underground or the underworld people that we've yet to see.
Can we go back in time? How when Boba first shows up in the mayor's office? Like, how good was that scene, right? The receptionist, there's no appointment for Boba Fett. Like,
no Boba Fett here.
This guy here.
That was so good. Who is that
they
guy?
Also cast the perfect actor for that
guy.
too,
I recognize him. Do you know who he is?
No idea, but he was absolutely perfect in that whatever it was, 30 seconds. He was gold. No Boba Fett, like that was amazing.
Yeah, it was so. He walks away. Well, and then the mayor's sidekicks are like trying to stop him. We can't press. He presses the button, walks right in. Thought it was so good.
classic administrative bureaucracy of a mayor's office too, right? 100%.
Exactly.
It even happens on Tatooine.
Yeah, he's busy. He's got appointments. He's just doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
Just love it. It was
Right.
so, it was just, again, a nice little beat. Like, one thing they're doing really, really well with Mandalorian, that you always have your little bit of comic relief, right? Not that it was
Right.
super funny. It wasn't out of, it didn't ruin the vibe of what was going on. It's just like, like Boba didn't care. He's not going to listen. Like, I'm in charge. I don't have to listen to you. I'm walking in. You can't stop me, right? So it was a really good entrance.
It's kind of a nice entrance too, because we talked about this before we went live about, I like the fact that they were kind of, they were dragging this guy through the street, right?
Yeah.
To the mayor's office, right? So you have this more serious tone, and they're like showing force to the rest of the people. You see them all looking, and then you walk into the office, and then there's this guy. I mean, he's like, "Oh, you're not, I don't see your name," or whatever. And it's so funny, right? And then it goes from that, and then the mayor's guy there shoos him off, and then you go to a more serious scene. It was just the perfect amount of not over the top goofiness.
I wish the administrative guy was Cheech Marine. Because that would have been just the very like desperado.
What I've been hoping for, yes.
Oh, like that would have been hilarious too. Just that guy gave me the Cheech kind of vibes.
Even with the eye patch, if you had the eye patch and the whole bit.
Well, the eye patch came in the second.
Oh, it did. Sorry.
Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Yes.
But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about though. Yes. I still thought it was a nice little thing. I love the character. Even though I'm sure we're going to see him again. Don't you think?
Oh, I hope so.
We're going back to the mayor's office for sure.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that whole interaction, though, was so extremely significant. And it didn't really strike me like it was fascinating. I loved to see the whole interaction at first. But thinking about the episode afterwards is what I think makes it so much more significant. And I also think it lends to the creativeness of Favreau and Filoni, and that they have this whole cultural underworld already understood. And, Boba Fett's trying to insert himself into a high rank, and everyone's like questioning his legitimacy, right? Like every time in this episode and the last one thing that stood out to me is everyone is like, "Oh, we didn't know you arrived. We didn't see your litter," right? So that's sort of that practice that all of these other daimyos and leaders and crime bosses have adopted to parade themselves through the street and assert their legitimate dominance over the people. Right. And we see Boba Fett not doing that, and that opens the door for people to question him as a legitimate crime lord. And then when he actually goes to meet with the mayor, we see that contestation of legitimacy again. Oh, we can't make room for you. He's busy. And I think thinking back to this is where we're starting to see some friction with the way that the Hutts have done things, ruling through fear, and the way Boba Fett is trying to do things and ruling with respect. And he's, always constantly trying to do things differently, and it's causing him a lot of friction because people are questioning him. They're not afraid of him as they are the Hutts, and especially in the mayor's case, they can sort of bite back to him a little bit and ask him for a tribute, not value his time, give him a bounty as though he's still just a bounty hunter and not a crime lord. So I think that scene has a lot more significance thinking back to it than I initially thought. And even that last piece of advice the mayor says, a family business or whatever outranks is more important than your crime business or whatever he says. I forget, but that was the first hint of the Hutts and how big their dominance is over the Outer Rim and the other galaxies.
Right. Yes, I like that. Speaking of the Hutts.
Yes.
Speaking of the Hutts. So
my question for you, when they said the twins, did anybody think Hutts?
Not at all.
I thought Hutts immediately. I don't know why I did. I thought Hutts. I said they're gotta be Hutts. because what was it? Clone Wars had lots to do with the Hutts in the first season, right?
Right,
So I
right.
assumed, I know it was a big family. I said the twins. I said it has to be the Hutts. Has to be. And sure enough, I was pleasantly
But
surprised.
how good, here they are. They come around and they're little, being carried with the drum, and what
The
an
litter.
amazing looking scene. They looked amazing.
How strong are those guys, eh?
Yeah,
Even seeing that, like you could see the little board that they're on flexing at times even more.
Yeah.
And the actors were so good carrying that. Like you could see them struggling with this. That was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And
That's
the
amazing.
voices were so good. Like, what I'm saying, like, one's a female, one's a male, which is a nice little touch. We never really seen a female Hutt in live action before, right? So it was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
They
was
come around the
great.
corner. Now, I just want to point out, I took this screenshot while the Hutts were coming out, just because it has to be done every episode. There was a gonk droid. So there you.
I noticed that one too. I said, "Oh, Steve was gonna love that one."
I got to take a photo of that.
I missed that one. That's hilarious.
It's a skinny one. I went. Oh, they went skimpy on the costume budget on that one.
Looks like a kid in a garbage can.
I know. That's what I thought too.
It's so funny.
Oh, that's funny.
But like the Hutts, I thought, but how, like when they heard the drums, everybody in the pub or whatever you want to call it, the establishment there, the gambling joint, whatever it was, when they heard the drums, they knew who was coming, right? And they all looked very concerned. So obviously, the Hutts still have a lot of pull in this area, like because they were all like everybody was quiet, and then the streets stood still. No one was moving.
Yeah, that was really cool to see.
Well,
also, the mayor was like jerking him around too. Is like, oh, you don't know what's going on? Go to the bar and figure it out. And then she's like, oh my goodness, you haven't heard? The twins are involved. And then you could hear the boom. That sort of that reminded me of that, that part in the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring in Moria, when you hear that first drum and like everything stops.
Yes.
Right. And it was cool to see that on the street too, like classic Western fashion, high noon standoff. The drum occurs, everyone stops, and they clear a path.
There's a lot in this episode. We have so much to unwrap here, but this episode had a very huge Western feel to it, right? Like we talked about Mandalorian have the kung fu, walking through the towns, the Western sort of thing. This one, it was just the same type of molding, right?
Yeah. What I'm thinking too is, and we'll get to it, and as we get to it, I'll point it out. To me, this was a huge. The theme was a cross between The Last Samurai and Dances with Wolves, for sure. Lots of Last Samurai in it, and I'll point it out as we go. But when the procession comes out, I just want to point out, to me, was the star of the episode. Was this guy?
Oh yeah!
Oh yeah!
When he came out,
BK.
I was like, "Whoa, this guy looks so bad." Like, what I mean bad? Like, he looks. You want a menacing character? Look at that guy.
Look at that guy. And the perfect animation of his face that they did.
Oh,
like what they're doing with all the aliens in this is so amazing.
Like that last glance after the conversation, I don't know if you guys saw, there's one last glance where this Wookiee's looking back at Boba Fett and his teeth kind of snarled up. It was such... That look said so much. That look said so much.
It said, "I'll see you later."
Exactly.
Or we'll be seeing you.
Like,
that is awesome.
Have a look at him, right? After a while, he reminded me of. Did you ever see Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes?
I did.
I definitely did not make that connection. Oh my goodness, that's uncanny.
Sorry, I just messed it up for you. No, this was the guy that used to be the general, but he was like the servant of the one family. So he was older, right? He was older, but he kind of gives me.
He does look very, very similar.
That vibe. So it just gave me that vibe.
The Wookiee looks scarier. He looks way scarier.
Man, he is terrifying looking.
And that whole scene, they showed that Wookiee lots.
Yeah,
yeah, they did.
They kept cutting back to him for reaction shots, and Boba was looking at him like, we're going to see him again too.
Totally. Well, you'd have to imagine, like, I didn't make the connection initially, but when I searched, further and read further, yeah, he's Black Chrysanthemum is a very established character in the expanded universe, and if they keep some of that lore, I guess, alive, you would have to imagine that him and Boba are highly aware of each other.
Yeah, you would think. And yeah, he's been what? Santi, BK, Black K. So
the thing is that the looks they were exchanging, it looked like there was some history there.
Yeah. And maybe there was.
I
maybe
hope
that
so.
was that look. You know what I mean? So
that he was fantastic though. That to see a Wookiee as a gladiator, the muscle come out from that was absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I first saw the back of the head, I had no idea what was coming. I thought it'd be like another person, a big huge guy or alien, but when it was a Wookiee, I lost it.
They first showed the back of the head, right, with the big hair, so you didn't know what it was. I agree. That's exactly it. I remember saying, "What is this? What is this?" Now that you mention that, that's exactly the same reaction I had. I had no idea. And then you saw the face. I just remember our eyes lit up, and I couldn't believe I saw, because every time I seen Chewbacca never looked. Not that he wasn't threatening. He looks like somebody you take seriously. But man, this guy had a totally different feeling when you look at him. The
shoulder pads and everything.
Everything about him was alpha male, right? That's when it comes to definitely alpha male.
Yeah, he was. I'd like to look more into this character because he's just wild looking. So I'm hoping for a nice battle, but I don't want him to die. I hope he lives.
I want him to turn.
Yeah.
He could be Boba's gladiator.
Yeah,
you always need a good villain, people. You always need a good villain.
True.
And this right now, as villains go, he looks like a great villain.
Yeah, I will say though, they're setting up some good villains too. Like to have to in the span of 30 seconds to have the Hutts as a major villain, and then this Wookiee gladiator BK become a significant villain. I'm looking forward to what we got in store.
Yeah.
We're only like 2 steps. We're not even 2.5. We're not even 1.5 episodes deep right now, right? Like this, that happened like the first 20 minutes, and then it just goes into a whole nother realm of storytelling, right? Like
it really switches gears.
Yeah,
there's already so much that has happened.
But the thing is, the first episode set up what comes up really well, right? You know what I'm saying? Like the first episode had to do its job, where it's telling the story. This is going to tell the current story of now and the backstory of how we survived the Sarlacc pit, right? And how we got to where he was in the Mandalorian. And so they set that up so well in the first episode, where it was easy to go right into it in the second episode.
Yeah,
again, very good storytelling.
The majority of this episode was a flashback, and we haven't even started to talk about the flashback.
I know we're already 20 minutes in. Like quite frankly, there's a big huge train that came up as like a half hour worth of conversation, I think.
Right.
Well,
let's get into where the he's resting in his little pod, and we get a flashback, right? And the opening scene, I kind of knew where it was going, right? So we get this pan in of this thing. And you see Boba and the I'm gonna say the female Tusken training in the corner.
Well, you think she's female? I never thought that.
Most definitely.
I never thought that.
See, I don't know. I didn't really thought it was this master trainer. I didn't really piece any of that together.
I don't think
it could be either. I mean, that's the beauty. That's the beauty of having the aliens like this. Is it's almost genderless in a sense that it could be any person, any alien, anything you want it to be. They're just darn good at what they do.
I know that I thought the Tuskens were pretty patriarchal. They were kind of like these, but I think this is. I didn't get a picture of the leader guy and this Tusken together. I mean, we don't really know their names yet. Maybe we will at some point when they release a Black Series figure. Oh yeah, it could be that. But I think it's a female just by the. I don't know. I'm taking a guess. We don't now. Hopefully, I don't want them to take their masks off because I know what it says. You know what they're supposed to look like in the comics or whatever in Legends, where they're kind of these alien looking things. But I still want that mystery. I just don't want. I don't want it to come off.
I don't need to see it. I love the way they look. I really love. Like I thought it was great. The Mandalorian season 2, that first episode, they showed a little more about the Tusken Raiders, right? Like you learn a little bit more about it. But now we're getting we're really looking behind the curtain now, and I'm really enjoying. They're really developing this race, this culture that they have, and this episode was a big shining flashlight. It really got a good in-depth look of how they function as a society.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was absolutely fantastic to sort of peek into the inner workings of this alien race, because like we said last week, when you first get a glimpse of them, they're these savages that were going to try to kill Luke Skywalker in the in the desert. And in episode 1 the Phantom Menace, they're shooting at the pod racer, so you don't really get this glimpse. So to see how they work, how they interact and socialize the kids, and how they train as warriors, and what their actual purpose was absolutely fantastic.
And
I will say a couple,
right?
They killed it, and that came back too in the deaths, the wrapping and the everything. The death ceremony was very, very similar to what we saw in episode 2.
Right. And you're going ahead that's after the, which I thought was funny.
Yeah. Sorry, I skipped ahead. Yeah.
I made notes on that. It kind of reminded me of when in A New Hope they come across all the dead Jawas, and so Luke goes back home, and when he comes back, C-3PO and Ben Kenobi have been putting the Jawas on this pile and setting them on fire. And then I got thinking, end of Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader dies. So Luke puts him on this thing, and he's setting him on fire. And I'm like, is this a Tatooine cultural custom? They burn the dead. You know what I mean? Because the Tuskens were doing that. They were doing that with the Jawas. It was just a normal thing.
Well, maybe it's a broader Star Wars phenomenon, because didn't they do that to Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo? Didn't they end up burning Qui-Gon?
They did.
Did they? And maybe
they did.
Okay.
Maybe the Emperor's. I'm looking forward to seeing or watching you grow up, Anakin. Right? And there's that little foreshadowing they did. Right?
Okay, I forgot about that, because I just thought when Padme died, she just got put into a tomb or something.
She did.
So
that's interesting too. And here I was gonna make a broad assumption about death rituals in Star Wars. Everybody burns, but that's right. Padme was put into a tomb.
Maybe on certain planets that's not maybe as civilized, they burn the bodies so they don't attract creatures.
Right?
You burn the bodies.
I made note. I wonder if that was just a Tatooine thing, but it's true, right?
We're doing a deep take on this. Hey, we're dissecting everything. I love it.
Well, the thing is, you can easily do that, right? There's so much stuff happening. Steve brings up a really good point. But the thing is, the fact is, why were they burning Qui-Gon? Because it was on Naboo, not on Tatooine.
Because that's not a Jedi thing either, right? Like, maybe it's just kind of whoever's custom.
Most Jedis we've seen just disappear.
So, So what if Qui-Gon came from a planet that was their custom as well? So they're respecting whatever his burial rites were.
Maybe.
So I just thought there was kind of a connection, because how can you bury anyone in the sand anyways, right? Like you have to go deep or something, because everything's just going to get blown away eventually.
Well, sand just seems like the easiest thing to bury people in and say rock. But
no, but I mean the sand just seems to blow away anyway, so why not just burn them?
Feed the Sarlacc.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Oh, you can imagine. Just endless people. So this is where we kind of get into kind of a Wild West, right? So as Boba is doing his not training like the Last Jedi, the Last Samurai.
I love how the Sand Person was really picking on him too, really you're doing it wrong, like this, right?
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, sorry, Steve, you're going to the train, right?
No, it's
The
tough
train-
love. So the train comes, and this kind of reminded me of in the Wild West when trains were going through and people would hang out the windows and shoot the buffalo.
Yeah.
This is,
Totally.
I mean, they were shooting at the Tuscans randomly, and they weren't even attacking them. So it's
The
turning this big
Banthas.
fight, of course, right? The Tuscans
Well,
are
the
Yeah.
defending
Banthas,
themselves.
right away, the first shot, they take out the Banthas every time, the first shot.
Yeah.
You know, the first shot every time, boom, take down the Bantha, falls down, dead.
From this point
Yeah.
on, I was like, "Oh, this is classic Western. Like, we're gonna
Oh,
get
yes.
an old school train robbery, train
Yeah.
heist type thing." Totally. As soon as I saw that jet train go through, I knew we were getting something nice.
They just
Yeah.
need wheels. They
Yeah.
need some horses, right?
How convenient. We
Right?
saw a couple speeders last episode.
That's right. So yeah, so it's kind of that classic, you know, the people come through or kill some of, you know, some of the natives, you know, and then the person who could be, you know, dances with wolves goes to get even with him and stuff like that. So that's what Boba does. He's like, give me, he goes, and I love it. He's learning fast. He's learning the sign language because he can't make the same sounds, right? And I like the combination that they've developed for the Tuscans back in the Mandalorian, where they talked, but they also did sign language, which would make sense. And again, too, connects to, you know, Native Americans or that culture, right? Where sometimes it would be both language and the, you know, signing of some sort. And it makes it easy for them now people to communicate if you can get that close to them. And here's just a side note regarding the Tuscans. As much as I love how they've developed the culture, I just hope they don't tame them out completely, because it was fun being kind of scared being out in the desert because you never know. Right now it's just like, are they going to tame them so much that everyone can just walk willy-nilly through the desert? There's no fear other than, say, Crate Dragon or that Goro monster, or you know what I mean?
I think they kind of handled that a little bit though. Like,
They did.
I definitely agree with you. There's an aura around, like, you don't want to be walking in the desert too late because you don't want to run into the sand people.
Exactly.
But at the same time, they sort of address that with that, you know, like the episode's title, right? The Tribes of Tatooine.
Right.
We, you know, once the Dune Sea dried up, all of these different fractions of sand people sort of migrated into their own tribes, and they
Right.
separated. And this particular one that Boba was fortunate enough to get stuck with was, you know, a tribe of warrior people, whereas, you know, there could be vast differences among different tribes.
Definitely.
And we already see it with the way, you know, they dress and compared to the ones we saw in A New Hope.
Yeah, and then the big thing is too is the train was shooting first, and they were shooting first because they don't want to be attacked by them. So I think the train people were the best defense is an offense, and that's what they were doing, right? Take them down before they can get to us. Because
100%.
Because they know. I don't go fast forward, but later on, like, you know, well, we won't survive the walk, and because they thought that we get picked off by sand people, right? So
yeah, no, definitely.
They were afraid. They know the Tuscans. Like there is a belief on Tatooine that sand people are pretty vicious and that they'll take you out if you have a chance. So I think that's not going to disappear.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point, Todd. I agree with that 100%. Is that, you know, maybe those tribes have been, you know, burned and pillaged in the past, so now they have to adopt a shoot first mentality, you know, to protect themselves and their own tribe, which is essentially what happened, right? A train rolls through and picks off a lot of their people. So, you know, what do they got to do? They've got to protect their own.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. So then Boba, he's like, you know, give me one of the guns and the stick, and I'll stop this, and stuff like that. And throughout all this, just keep mental note of this. Throughout this entire time, Boba's still in this wrecked, raggedy little suit of his that he survived in, because I think it's a symbolic thing that we'll see later on. But
absolutely,
So he goes to, of course, Tashi Station, right? That's where the bad guys all hang out, right? And we kind of went through this last time. So that's him at the bottom. So the guess was it was Tashi Station. So
That's hilarious. And like I was saying before, I didn't even make that connection. I didn't know he was going to stock up on some power converters.
I got to tip my hat to Steve because he made some bold predictions that came true in the first episode. This is another one we talked about 3 weeks ago, and again,
Right.
he nailed it. So
this
Steve.
during the trailer, I saw this, and what caught my eye was the guy's leather jacket with those ropes, and it reminded me of these guys at Tossie Station, Cammy and Fixer. And then we saw them in this episode before Boba comes in. There they are. There they are. And I'm happy to say, let me pull the sheet, that it's confirmed through IMDb that is, in fact, if you look here, Cammy and Fixer.
Oh, we're still on the screenshot.
Still the screenshot, Steve.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
There we go.
It is here.
There's Cammy and Fixer right there. Skylar Bible.
Yes. I was making a joke. I was like, I wonder if that's his Hollywood name, that his name was like Skalinsky Bablonsky or something, and he's Skylar Bible. It's such an interesting name. You know what I mean?
It's a
stage name.
I've never met any Bibles. So
Bibles, yeah. So Bablinsky, but his agent's like, nah, dude, this is America.
Skylar
You can't
Bible
do that.
now.
I can sell Bibles, but I can't sell.
So that's funny.
That was I said, you guys, before we went live, I'm like, I get out of a million guesses, I get one right. So I'm allowed to get one right. So yeah, it was pretty cool because, well, remember, this is only 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So they'd be about the same age as Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. And they look great. So yeah. So Boba goes in and he just beats the snot out of the whole place.
Yeah.
And then he takes all I think I got a picture of that. He picks out his speeder, and I have to say, every time I see one of these speeder bikes, it always reminds me of God, I can't find it. Sorry, it always reminds me of Wayne, because Wayne was the one back in the day with the Star Wars, the role-playing game by Weston Games that came out a long time ago. He was the one that fleshed it out for the role-playing game. So the swoop bike. So I always attribute the swoop or connect it to Wayne from the site Lum Runner. So
I kind of wish when Bo was driving back, with the stolen speeder bikes, was playing Bad to the Bone.
Like Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2.
Yeah, exactly. Bad to the Bone.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I had a couple notes from that scene. First, I mean, those aliens, again, look great. We could say this every single episode, every single scene that an alien shows up, they look absolutely fantastic. Like the I don't know if CGI, like we were saying, or makeup and costumes, they look fantastic.
Yeah, these guys,
right? Those guys. I remember, even playing the old Star Wars video games and seeing those guys with, the blockheads, and you just see their design, but to see it like that is absolutely fantastic.
Well, it's not even just plastic heads like in Mos Eisley in episode 1, where they didn't have the budget to make animated faces. It just makes everything much more believable, right? You buy everything. It's like you're saying, they're doing an amazing job with it.
Yeah, it was really cool to see another Star Wars video game showed up too. Just for like a split couple seconds, we see like a video bar game that a couple of those Raiders are playing. That was really cool.
Yes.
And then
vintage sound effects too for an arcade game too.
Yeah, that was pretty hilarious to see. A bar just like any other bar. They got some video games in there, and then the fight choreography was fantastic.
Yes, yeah. How he was using what he learned with the gaffy stick, right? Kind of that whole, again, The Last Samurai. It had that good feel. But yeah, it was really good. And I really liked it in Tashi Station. It was a deleted scene, but when you watch the deleted scene, you don't really get to see much of it. It's kind of like it seems cramped and crowded by stuff, not people.
Yeah.
And to me, it felt more of just like a teenage hangout, because that's what Luke was doing. He's hanging out with his teenage friends, and they were like, just like making out, doing nothing. But it turns out it's just kind of like out in the middle of nowhere dive bar with gangsters that show up or something.
Yeah. And that fight scene too allowed you to really take in the whole space too, because it moved throughout the bar. And then, I mean, it was great to see Tamura Morrison put someone through a window and then take that drink that's sitting on the bar top right after. That was fun.
And then he's like, "See you later."
Yeah.
So yeah, and then he comes back with his booty, like the not his booty, but you know what I mean, like his treasure, which was all the speeders, right?
His horses.
Yes, the horses that he took. And then we're gonna get into which I thought was really funny. Now it was the other side training session. Right?
I know, this was so good, so good.
So he's trying to teach them. So you go through the montage of him trying to teach them how to basically rob a train.
Totally. I love, like, ever since Return of the Jedi, speeders have been one of my favorite vehicles, right? Unreal. The chasing through the trees, to see it like broken down into actions of like, okay, here's what you got to do. Like teaching it to someone who doesn't speak your language,
or doesn't know technology at all, right? They know nothing about technology at all.
Right? They were trying to take the bikes apart as soon as they got them.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
They're scavengers, right? That's exactly what they were doing, right? Just wreck everything. It was so good. So good.
Yeah. So of course, you know, they had that big where they're attacking the train because they're trying to stop it. So the whole thing was to train how to jump from the bikes to this really, really fast moving train and take it over. And what I thought,
that Sandman never gave up, right? No matter how many times he fell off that speeder bike, it was so entertaining.
Yeah, it was.
I made a note. I said I really like the fact that it wasn't an easy thing when they finally did go to take the train. A lot of them died or got blown up or
another
something.
Bantha dies, you know, right off the bat again.
It was right off the hop, eh?
Yeah, his first jump, it was like, nope, it was bad. I thought, wow, this is really good. It's not easy. They're not doing this quick finish at the end just to get through the episode. It was like there's only a few of them at the end by the time that they took it. So
to me, guys,
yeah, it was a major season.
The whole train thing really, to me, had a lot of similarities to the Solo movie when they were trying to take like you know, the fact that they're using the roof covers for blocking for the blaster fights, like it had the same, totally different but very similar feel to it. And I can't believe they pulled off that, because how long was that scene? It was a pretty long scene.
It was long.
They pulled that off for a TV episode.
Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic.
It's blockbuster film type quality is what that was. Like everything about that looked fantastic.
Yeah, everything about it too. Not only like, you know, blocking the blasters and jumping train car to train car, but you see like the droid working on all this complex machinery in the front end, and then the huge jet engine too. Everything about that was fantastic. And then to see, you know, the master warrior come in and take things into their own hands there. That was cool to see too. Like, no, I'll do it myself.
When he was walking through the train and just throwing it was every aspect of that thing was so well planned, so well executed. Nothing looked janky. Like, you know, sometimes on TV, so something just doesn't like pull off, right? Like, I'm just gonna throw Hawkeye under the brush. Some of the stuff just didn't look as good as, like, this was full-fledged, like full, you know, spare no expense job on that scene.
Yeah, fantastic.
It had to look good, because it seemed like they're trying to pull that off and it doesn't look good. You're gonna lose all how bad, you know what I'm saying? Like, they did such an amazing job. Like, even like the tether hooks, they threw the tether hooks and they're like swinging onto the train. It was just so much about that was so good. Even like, you had the sand people, they were sniping them through the windows. There was just so much of that scene that just came together so well.
Boy, did they ever show how great a shot they are with those, which would be assumed to be maybe not as advanced weapons. I mean, they'd be better than our weapons, but man, they were shooting people at a fast-moving target through little windows. That's how good they are.
Practice shooting at pod races over years and years, right?
Right,
No doubt.
The pod races go pretty fast too, right? So
yeah, they're probably even faster than that train. And that was the thing in that movie, right? They were, because everyone there, they were assuming was infringing on their land, so they were just angry. They would just shoot at anyone that wasn't a Tusken.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
Yeah,
at the very beginning of the episode, like not the beginning, but when they first show the train and you get a little glimpse of the person who's actually shooting them, I was like, oh, that kind of looks like a pike, but I'm not sure what they'd be doing there. And then, of course, when we see them up closer, we see like the classic, pike syndicate as they look like in all of the animated series and everything like that.
Yeah.
And, of course, well, thinking back, anything to do with crime, you got to go through the Pikes. Like the Pike Syndicate controls all of that. And then it was weird to see them without their mask. I always thought that was their face. Like when you see them in the animated Clone Wars, you see the Pike Syndicate quite frequently. And they're always like, they have the mask. It looks exactly like that. But when you take them off, it's like a fish alien almost. So to see them, they look really good.
So good.
And that's kind of the first time we see behind the mask at what a Pike actually looks like.
Like, they're not running Spice, though, are they? What Spice look like? It looks like that. Oh, okay.
They played down. That was hilarious.
Like, I have no idea what Spice.
So getting to kind of the end when, I mean, it's inevitable, right? They're going to accept Boba Fett, right? He's done this big thing. He stopped this threat. He's proven himself. He's a warrior, etc. Right? So they're obviously going to bring him into the tribe, right? Or make him a member. And it's this scene here where they're dressing him. And this reminds me again, too, of the Last Samurai, when Tom Cruise, that one woman is putting her dead husband's armor and stuff onto him to go into this battle, right? And to me, again, too, this is kind of it's ceremonial in other cultures like that, right? Getting the armor on. And this is the transformation from him from those rags. And I didn't get a good picture of him coming out all done up in his robes, right? So now he's this, I think it's this scene here where they're around the fire, right? And he's being told the story, and he gets this that lizard thing.
Yes, the gift. The gift.
The gift.
The gift.
I was going, what's he going to do with a lizard? And then
I know.
Yeah, there it is there. And then it jumps in his nose.
My first thought was like, my goodness, is that thing still inside his head somewhere?
And that's what my thought was, because they kept calling it his guy. And I thought, oh, is this how it's this thing that's going to permanently be there? And this is how the Tuskens get around and know the desert so well. But it was that kind of like hopped up spiritual journey.
Yeah.
That is in cultures here. So then he starts going through that whole like vision quest or the vision.
That was very, very well. I mean, they do use a lot of like Native American and indigenous mysticism, mythology, and narrative in there. And 100%, that was like to me, that was like the vision quest mythology, right? You're going out into the wilderness to find a piece of your identity. And
again, a callback to the prequels I thought was very cool, right? He's going through his life and these images come up. And
that was cool.
Dad's going away again, right? Because the ship's flying off and he's alone, and there's that
was a nice
reflection. Yeah,
that was a nice addition because that wasn't in the prequels, right? So that was a really cool shot.
Yeah, that was fantastic to see. It's always good to see Camino, but to see young Boba in the reflection like that is awesome.
Mm,
And obviously how traumatic losing his dad was, the way he lost his dad. That was
right.
felt in the first episode and this one too, right? You had the shots of his dad's head on the ground, him picking it up, and like it had some traumatic effect to him.
Yeah.
And this is my
One
theory
thing I
of why
didn't
he's nicer.
realize until sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just going to say this is my theory of maybe why he is nicer, where he's not that dangerous bounty hunter anymore. He's like, I'm going to try to do it with lead with respect and not with fear, because of this spiritual journey he went on. Maybe change something in him. Anyways,
Oh yeah,
and maybe that's why he's changed, right? The old Boba, right? The rags were taken off. He's put in these robes.
See, I didn't think that. I just thought that the whole spiritual journey was to go and find his staff, right? Like you see all the sand people with their staffs. Now you know there's a big, huge personal spiritual connection to their staffs.
Right, but you can do that without getting high as a kite, though, right?
Well, maybe they don't.
High on lizard.
Maybe they don't, right? Like this is where you go. This is your weapon. This is your shield. It's part of you, right? So it was kind of
maybe that's all part of it, though. Like maybe all of that is connected to his change in leadership style and getting to know the sand people and how they're misunderstood as being these feared desert people to being this respected warrior tribe, and maybe that all compounds to change his sort of leadership ideology over time from fear to respect, because maybe he is feeling misunderstood.
Well, and that's just it. Like if you look at there was a fear, not that Boba Fett's afraid, but he didn't feel like he was going to get out alive, right? Like, we had to fight for life. Then he learned a little bit about their culture. They learned about him. So he started respecting them as a society, right? So maybe that's where he's learning the compassion, or not it's compassion, but, the rules of respect and not fear, because the Sand People were all about fear in the beginning, right? And then it kind of changed as he's done, help them out. And, so I think that's where he's gaining more of that character shift through his interactions with the Sand People. Maybe
I just wish that with his armor and stuff, because in the Mandalorian, when he shows up, he's got the robes on. Then when he puts his armor on, the robes are underneath. And I know some people didn't like the roby look. I thought it was cool, and I thought it would have been cool if he would have kept that for this series, where it was more the robes, because he was still embracing his Tuscan brothers, from saving his life, and he would incorporate that into his identity. Would be kind of cool. But I think he's more of just a usual costume. It's black and green now instead of
See, I thought that was like a clear signal of a change in his identity. Like for Return of the Jedi and Empire, he's in those tan robes underneath, and now like we see him, he still has those black robes underneath, which I thought was still like the robes that they wrapped him in to an extent, not as much as the Mandalorian, but to me that was like a shift in his identity from this lone bounty hunter to this more matured, grounded warrior.
Right.
And that would be classic Star Wars too, right? Like using costumes to to signal character identity. As Jason has said on previous podcasts with Luke's outfit and being all done up to signal he's on the balance between light and dark, and then at the end of Return of the Jedi we see it open with the white to signal he's gone to the light side. So it wouldn't be the first time, and I'm sure it won't be the last.
Right. No, that's true. So Boba comes out of the sands from his bender with his stick, and I kind of figured, I was like, okay, I think I know what they're going to do. Obviously, he's going to be. I think after that is when he gets his robes, and then they kind of take him over to
the wood shop.
The wood shop. I have just a picture of just the wood shop.
Yeah, you had a really before the show you showed us a little comparison.
Yeah, so this is the wood shop here, right? So they bring him here, but it instantly reminded me of McQuarrie's concept art for A New Hope. Like, this is what's great about what they're doing now, right? Favreau,
Yeah.
Filoni, Rodriguez is they're keeping, you can call it fan service all you like, but it's just fans. They're just fans doing really cool things, nods to someone who helped shape Star Wars.
Absolutely. Even like that kind of setup right there at Battlefront. If you play Battlefront, there's one thing, you're on Tatooine, and there's a
Right.
whole bunch of wreckages like that where you can hide behind when you're fighting.
Right.
So the fact that it's been around, obviously patterned off the original concept art, right? But again, like you're saying, Steve, that's a pretty cool nod to the person who helped
Yeah,
give the vision to what Star Wars is going to look like.
it's very cool looking. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
So,
awesome.
Yeah. So then he gets his gaffy stick and builds it, the whole like scene of him, and again too, it's just that whole Dances with Wolves or Last Samurai, but maybe that's just an old story, anyways. But then they do this kind of dance around the fire with their gaffy sticks, and it really reminded me. Even some of the music sounded like Australian Aborigines. That's what it felt like to me.
I agree. I definitely have that feel to it for sure.
Yeah.
I like it.
Isn't Tamura Polynesian descent? Like, isn't he a Maori? So that would be, perfect to bring those elements of his own personal background into, narrative, alien wise, sort of co-opting those similar rituals. That's I think a really neat touch.
Mm-hmm.
I like how it started off with just two people doing it. Then more people got up. The whole entire tribe was up doing the same dance all around in sync. It was pretty special.
It was
like a haka. Almost had kind of a haka feel to it, right?
Totally.
Without all the grunting and stuff, but yeah.
I love that. Have you ever seen that video where it was at a wedding and there was the bride's brothers and uncles and everything were going to do this haka because she was of the descent, and the guy she was marrying, he must know it. He must be right, in New Zealand in that culture. But they ended up doing this big haka at their wedding, and I remember thinking, I said to my wife, I showed her the video, I'm like, I wish I would have seen this before we got married because I would have wanted to have this done. She's like, nah, it wouldn't be done.
It's my day's team, not yours. Come on.
I know. I was just supposed to show up.
Show up. Don't say anything except for I will or I do, and that's it.
Yeah. Anyways, so.
But overall, like I'm really digging this Boba Fett series.
Yeah, me too. I don't know why it's getting some criticism. Like Steve and I were talking before, I don't know why it's getting criticism. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Haters will want to hate. I read one. I'm going like, this person has no idea what they're talking about. Like somebody saying it's the worst piece of trash they've ever seen produced for television. I'm like, what is this person talking about?
Yeah, what are they wondering? People are saying it's boring. Like, what do you want? It's like, do they just want nothing but laser beams and laser swords fighting constantly? This is a great story.
I don't know what they're watching. Like, I really don't. Like, we all really know nothing about Boba Fett. Really, we know he's 8 minutes of screen time in 3 trilogies, right? We're all learning. It's like, yes, we have a passion for the character. We want to know more, but I don't know how they're thinking it's like slow or boring.
Totally. And what they're able to balance too. Like, keep in mind when we catch up with Boba Fett, this is already past Return of the Jedi, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he's already lived like a certain amount of time. So not only what they have to do is fill in that gap of how he survived, a possible demise in one movie, but also push the story forward as well and connect the two. I think they're doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
I don't know what people are expecting. Like I'm watching it. I'm entertained. Like, you got great band of characters. You have some stories. You have shady people. You don't really know the whole entire story. Like who's behind what. You don't know. Is it the twins? Is it the mayor? Is it the lady at the bar? Like, no one knows, right? Like, what's happening next episode? We don't know, right? Like, nobody knows. So I don't know what they're expecting.
I guess the lesson here is don't trust anyone, except for Tuskens, I guess.
Well,
I would have to imagine this next episode is where we see Boba try to gather everyone who's not a Hutt and get them on his side. Like when in that one scene of the trailer when they have everyone gathered around the table. Like I'm hoping that's what we get to see finally.
Yeah.
Well, the Hutts right now. I only saw one little muscle for the Hutts. You know, they're guys who are carrying them can't really do much. The Hutts don't look like they can move, so they hardly seem threatening at all, right?
Well, maybe that's all they need is this guy.
Oh, that guy looks so cool.
We're gonna
that look is so good. And I don't know if you guys know, but John Favreau wrote the episode. Like, you know,
yes.
Like, I can't remember who wrote the first episode, if he wrote it or not, but yeah, just the fact that his hands are all over this one too, right? So
yeah.
Didn't Robert Rodriguez write the first episode? I'll have to go back and double check.
I know he directed it. I know he directed it. I don't know if he wrote it.
Because I think isn't the bulk coming from the two, Favreau and Filoni? Because I
imagine so. I didn't see Filoni for story for this though. I know
Favreau wrote both of them. Wrote both of them.
So maybe Favreau's writing the whole entire series. Maybe, who knows?
Right.
I hope that's what they do, because if we know, based on past Star Wars, if you have too many different writers trying to get their fingers on the overall story, things screw up fast. So I'm hoping we see continuity with Favreau keeping his fingers in the mix here the whole way through.
And that's what I love about the episode, the fact that it had a nice balance of action, storytelling, character development, and you had your funny little bits too, right? Like you could tell he had his finger all over that. You know, oh, Boba Fett, you don't have an appointment here. You can tell he had his finger all over that, right?
Yeah. It felt again like everything that Favreau has been doing for Star Wars. It felt like Star Wars. It felt like old Star Wars. From someone who's a fan, for someone who teared up when he saw R2-D2 walking with Luke Skywalker in a show he knew it was going to happen, and still teared up talking about it. You know what I mean? That kind of a fan.
Yeah, and that's one thing that they're doing really, really well. They have people in place that love the universe. They love the characters. They love the folklore. And they want to do justice to it, not try and recreate something new just because, right?
Yeah, subvert our expectations, which is a swear word now to me. So just make a Star Wars show. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, and it's really intriguing. The whole, like, I really liked Tatooine before because it was the original. It was, you know, Luke Skywalker came from there. It was so cool seeing the cantina, but man, Tatooine seems a lot more. They've made this into, just like the Tuskens, into a lot more than just, you know, the little scenes that we've seen, or just sand. And it'd be interesting how much they're developing the Tuskens, or developing the different cities on Tatooine. Could you imagine how are you going to make people empathize with the Jawas? Like, how much can you expand on their characters, right? It's so funny because in Mandalorian, they're just little jerks, right?
So, they're always little jerks, aren't they? They've never been not jerks. So,
did you know that the Tuskens and the Jawas are actually related? That they're actually kind of related, the same species. They just evolved differently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's really interesting. So they are connected to each other. So they're the original, right? They're the original races on that planet, and then all the outsiders came in and
they both like to tear apart equipment. That's for sure.
One point that I didn't make the connection of before until I saw that flashback of little Boba is that Fennec Shand knows both Omega and Boba Fett. Because remember, she had a bounty on Omega in the Bad Batch.
She did.
That's right. So That's
Maybe
interesting.
maybe she'll, one episode reveal, hey, I know your sister or something.
Oh, but now you just open up a big door.
She's
Like-
looking good for her age. Because she
You
has
open
to
it-
be. Because Boba
Well,
was
because
a kid
Omega
still,
was
right?
made later, though. Omega was made like not to age as fastly as the other clones, and then Boba. I thought the way they'd handled it in Bad Batch was that Boba was made a little bit before,
Right.
and he was already grown up throughout the Clone Wars, whereas Omega sort of came in late.
Because I thought,
You're
because
talking
of
about Fennec Shand,
episode
aren't you?
2, like he couldn't be that much older, because he was at the end of episode 2. He was what, like 10 or something? Or sorry, that
Yeah.
episode 2, he'd be like 10, and then the Clone Wars ended episode 3. I don't know how long that was after that.
But Fennec connects them both, so we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah, she might show up. Have you heard some of the rumors that Harrison Ford might do that whole Luke Skywalker, that Han Solo is going to show up during this series?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, Boba Fett.
I have not heard that.
They're going to use the same technology like that they use for Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian. I
don't think
cannot see
Harrison
that.
Ford cares enough about Star Wars to come back and do that. Like hearing some of his interviews about even coming back for the Rise of Skywalker, and everyone's asking him, "Oh, are you a Force ghost?" And he's like, "What the hell is a Force ghost? Like,
Yeah,
stop talking to me."
it's like he's only there for the money or something.
He just doesn't care.
I just can't see him. I don't believe that rumor. I think it's just people, being whatever.
They're grasping at straws. They're trying to create a buzz to get some clicks and some likes, and and hopefully somebody's going to share their content, right?
Yeah, it'd be cool seeing Luke Skywalker show up again, though.
I have no problem seeing Luke. Oh, they've established him already. Why can't we see him again?
I know.
You know what I'm
They
saying?
have
Like,
the technology and the actor.
Yeah, they exactly. Or I always hear Sebastian Stan, right? And he said he said he would do it if Mark Hamill said okay.
Yeah.
Who was the female opposite in the Solo movie again? I forget who commented saying that she's going to show up. But now that we've seen the Pikes running Spice, to me that makes her connection
with Crimson Dawn,
right?
The Crimson Dawn, yeah, right. more plausible.
They are. There was another rumor, I didn't get to read it, about them giving her character her own series, or bringing her somehow into something. So, a more underworld. I think they're going to find a lot of stories in the underworld of Star Wars for sure, with Crimson Dawn and all these different bad things. I want to point out, when I was looking through the IMDb to find out who Cammy and Fixer, if they were actually there, one of the Gamorreans that's his bodyguards is an actual UFC fighter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Former, or he actually is currently?
Like he is a current. I think he's current. Trig. I'm just trying to think of the name. Anyway, it says he's UFC fighter. So I haven't checked. I think he's current, but that's kind of funny, right? Why he's so big. I wonder if he's the one that you see always making the moves. That they do the close-ups on, because he's
totally. I think that adds to the fight choreography as well. If you can get some actual fighters in there, that definitely adds to it. Like that's why in the Mandalorian, what's her face was so fun to watch.
Yeah, because people who can, and I think audiences, even if you can't fight, audiences are getting smarter and have been smarter for a very long time, especially when movies like, back in the day, The Matrix put effort into it, so that, and then so different shows like even John Wick, all that stuff is legitimate. So people are just getting used to what fighting looks like, because you were able to see it all the time on TV with like UFC or other kind of cage fighting that's not pro wrestling, and people now know what it's supposed to look like, right?
Totally. Gina Carano is her name. That's
Gina Carano, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, and sometimes I'm not a pro, but I did train in Muay Thai for like 15 years and stuff. So sometimes when I see fighting stuff, and I'm like, ooh, I'm like cringe, right? But then I'm like, it's Hollywood. But now they're getting so much better at it.
Well,
You're
the
like,
thing is,
okay, yeah,
it's stylized fighting too, because like real fighting doesn't look like it does in the movies. Like if you watch MMA, it doesn't look anything. It's a lot of grappling and everything's ugly. It has to be,
Dancing.
it has to be stylized. Like the guys, they have to be super trained. They have to be trained in the martial arts. They have to be trained all this sort of stuff. But it's also choreography and dancing and all those sort of things to make it all
right.
stylized, right? Because it doesn't happen
Right.
like that in real life.
But if you look at fighting too, where you watch boxing movies or fight movies, and people always criticize about not keeping their hands up, and it's like, okay, but you know they're filming for a film. You need to see the actors. So if they're properly,
You'll never see
you
the
can't
face.
film. So of
You'll never
course
see the
they're
face.
fighting
Yeah.
like this because you got to see their face. They don't have their hands up, or they're standing weird. Now it's different. Like John Wick, he was doing some really good stuff, but you can't, like in Rocky, you can't have hands up.
No, you can't.
You can't see their face.
That's why we see Peter Parker's face in every Spider-Man movie. It's why we see Boba Fett, because they have to show the face so the actor can act and you can see the emotion.
Yeah.
I still say when you watch Mandalorian, like, I know you're wearing a mask, but the head movements says a lot when it's well timed and well, there's some skill set to acting with the costume and getting the emotion across.
The silence.
I actually heard Pedro Pascal was a little upset about that early on, that they didn't show enough of his face and that he wasn't able to showcase his acting chops. But who knows if that's true or not?
I heard that little.
That's the role.
Rumor too, right? But that's what I loved about you. Watch the most current Judge Dredd movie. You had Carl Urbans. Like when he was Judge Dredd, the director wanted him to take off the mask. He refused. He said the character would not take off this mask. He looked at the comment. He's never without his helmet on, right? So he refused to take off the helmet.
Great movie. Watch that so many times, and
it's a great movie compared to
it's a good one.
Schwarzenegger when he had the helmet on the first scene, then it was off the rest of the movie. Like you're not Judge Dredd without the helmet, right? You're just not.
Right.
You're not Boba Fett without the helmet, right? Like like you're not the Mandalorian without the helmet. You're not a stormtrooper. Like just imagine if all the stormtroopers took off their helmets. Like how stupid would that be?
They walk up and their commander's like, report. They're like, well, sir, blah 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 blah.
No one wants to see that.
I know, it's so dumb. This whole like you said, Spider-Man. Every time he lands, he's like, "Okay, so we gotta go." You saw me act now. It's like I think they gotta hire actors and say, "Look, you need to get over yourself. If you want this role, the person doesn't take their helmet off, or when they're fighting, they don't get their mask off."
It's the directors too, because they feel they have to get the emotion out there sometimes too.
Right. Well, when you say Oscar nominated so and so is in this movie, and if you never see their face, because that's how they sell movies. For some reason, because that's what Star Wars fans care about. But anyways, on that note, I'm really looking forward to Chapter 3, and we're gonna have to do. Yeah, you're right, Adam. The live watch was kind of fun, especially when we were all trying to sync up and you could hear each other.
I think season finale. We got to do season finale.
Season finale for sure. We'll go live. We'll go late so everyone can do it. I didn't realize not everyone was still off for the holidays, so I felt like kind of a jerk when it was just like the three of us were working.
Well, you were asking me like going like because it comes on midnight, which is 3 hours before my time, right? So like going, I was exhausted last night. I had to stop halfway through because I kept nodding off. I was just so tired. So I woke up. Luckily, I woke up this morning at 6 a.m. and I finished watching it.
It was long one. It was 58 minutes to.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Again, we're talking about the first episode was like just a little bit with 36 minutes, right? Yeah. Now this one's like an hour long. That's a big investment for a TV series. One thing I love about the streaming things, it's not a set time. They story dictates the length. That's what I love. I'm enjoying that. So no matter what series I'm watching, it's 36 minutes, it's 34 minutes, one's 28, one's 46. Whatever it takes to tell that story, they're using it. And I like that.
Yeah, really enjoyed that. All right, guys. So I think this was a good one tonight. Thanks to everyone who has been watching and joining in. And be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And we will see you next week.